Bloomberg's Jessica Summers joins us, as she always does, from New York for the latest on the U.S. markets. I mean, this latest development, Jessica, in the U.S.-China trade war, that's the U.S. granting some relief for certain broadband companies and wireless customers that use Huawei technologies. I mean, I don't know if that's some sort of a reprieve or not, but the situation's still tense, I would imagine.
Thanks, Devin. Yes, definitely. Essentially, I'll break it down for you now. The Commerce Department is issuing or sort of granting a 90-day temporary relief period to certain U.S. broadband companies and wireless customers that do use Huawei equipment. So this is quite an interesting development here in terms of customers that use Huawei phones. This 90-day period will allow Google to provide Android security updates to those phone users during the 90 days. But after the 90 days is completed, those phone users will no longer have access to Google's apps here. Now, this follows U.S. broadband companies, chip makers here, such as Intel, Qualcomm, all coming out and saying that they will no longer supply Huawei with equipment until further notice. So that is what we're really focusing on here.
It can cause a bit of a storm. I was wondering what analysts are saying of the situation.
Yes, that's a very good point you bring up, because analysts seem to think that this is going to have quite a far-reaching impact here. Of course, we know it's going to affect those U.S. chip makers like Intel, like Broadcom. They've already come out and say that they're no longer going to be supplying equipment to Huawei until further notice. But, for example, Bloomberg intelligence analysts say that this ban will likely delay the introduction of 5G in China and in other regions that do use Huawei equipment. We also have analysts like Macquarie coming out saying this is quite negative for all operators, as it will likely slow the pace of those network rollouts, and it could even increase the cost per unit.
And then, Jessica, I see more views to President Donald Trump to just lay off those tariffs. This time they're coming from the big sneaker brands, Nike, Adidas, for example. They're calling it a catastrophe. What are they saying?
Yes, this is also quite an interesting and very important development here. Essentially, 173 companies have signed an open letter to U.S. President Donald Trump asking him to stop this action. So these tariffs, or proposed tariffs, I should say, of as high as 25% on Chinese goods will include footwear that ranges from sneakers to sandals. And while many companies have tried to pull production away from China recently simply because of desires to make goods in their own home countries, China is still very much a large shoewear production center here, so it really does hurt these companies. And a U.S. trade association actually said that this will cost U.S. customers an additional $7 billion per year, the tariffs that is. And I also want to point out that this open letter did include a point that the tariffs will disproportionately affect working class individuals. So right now we're just waiting to see how Trump does respond to this letter.
All right, thanks very much. Jessica Summers there with the latest on the U.S. markets.